Oh, are you guys gonna go somewhere? Yeah. Are you guys going home? I'm gonna go to work. I'll take time off. Thank you.
It is 10:02, friends. Let's get ready to rock. Let's get ready to roll. And so as we do our introductions, as we always do, I want to give you a prompt, so get prepared. Okay, pull out your device. And as you introduce yourself, who you are and who you're with, who you represent, I need you to share just you need to look up the number one song, and the month you were born and the year you were born, and just share the name of the song and the artist, okay? So for example, I'm Keith Station. I work for the City of Omaha Mayor's Office. Good to see y'all. And Olivia Newton-John's Magic was the number one song in August of the year I was born, okay?
What year is that, Keith?
That would be 1980, Laura.
Oh.
I just shared it. There you see.
Was I indeed?
You don't have to reveal that, Kitty. You don't want to. But welcome, everyone. If you are, please observe the notice for Open Meetings Act.
Oh, yes.
We have, thank you. We have folks online or joining us virtually as well. Okay, and welcome to the Regional Planning Advisory Committee of the Heartland 2050 Initiative. Our role, everyone, is to build and reinforce the social infrastructure that comes from advancing the initiative. That's what we're here to do, is to know each other, be friends, partner, share, align, and make sure that the MAPA board, our respected electeds, have the information they need to lead our region in a productive and transformative way. So thank you all for being here. Laura, do we have quorum today?
Don't know yet. We gotta go around.
Okay, well, let's see. Okay, so starting out, hope we get a chance to look. We'll start to go this way. Who you are, who you're with, and give me that song.
All right, I'm Garrett Schramm. I'm with the City of Omaha Traffic and Public Works. And the number one song was The Power of Love by Huey Lewis and the News.
Let's go.
Nice.
So you also get a summer playlist. We're building a summer playlist here. So the song and the month and the year you were born. That's all right. I think we're starting off.
I'm Jacob Teal, GEO Consulting Group, works as traffic engineer there, and the number one song the year month I was born was the Macarena.
I can introduce my new co-worker, Javier Saldana. He's gracing us with his presence today. I'll be telling people who you are, man.
Hey, good morning, Javier Saldana, City of Omaha Mayor's Office. This is new for me. So some of you have had the pleasure of meeting from my previous role with the state of Nebraska. Number one song during my time was Madonna's Vogue.
Greg Pascatch from Porch Investments. Free by Chief.
Good at mine.
Zach,
Sing all of them.
Unless you like.
we're not gonna do that now. Zach Fergus, landscape architect with Langford Pearson and chair of the Natural Resource Committee, all night long by Lionel Richie.
Nice.
Ken Hall, Environmental Services Director for Douglas County. It's just embarrassing.
You don't have to
Right there. So, I mean, I looked it up, like, I don't know any of these songs. And I came up with the one that I actually recognized, Dean Martin, Volare.
Valari?
And I take no ownership there.
It's the own it. Thank you for sharing that. I don't know.
Laura Dietrich, Planning and Zoning Coordinator for Douglas County. Mine is Rod Stewart, Tonight's the Night. I don't know it.
Yeah.
I don't know it.
You said Rod Stewart.
Rod Stewart.
Somebody needs to get the phone going and we can play. Chris Meeks, OPPD. I'll quiz everybody. When I was born, Crisscross will make you jump.
Jump.
That would be sort of 1991.
May 92.
92, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Chris.
Just a
Oh,
baby.
warm it up, Chris. See what I did there? Warm it up, Chris.
Yeah.
Bruce Fountain, City of La Vista Community Development Director. I'm right there with Kent. She is older than most of you, but. I go back to songs that you guys probably have not heard of, well, maybe, My Boyfriend's Back by the Angels.
Oh, yeah.
Kevin Flager, City Pavilion, City Planner, and mine is Exhale by Whitney Houston.
Megan Ingberg, Planning and Development Administrator for the city of Ralston, and I have two that apparently were number one. And that is Karma Chameleon by the Culture Club and
Yes.
Jump by Van Halen.
Nice.
Morning, I'm Greg Anderson. I'm the Community and Economic Development Manager at MAPA, and my song is Every Breath You Take by the Police.
You'll be great.
Ashley Turner, consultant and chair of the engagement committee. Mine is Love Takes Time by Mariah Carey with honorable mention for Ice Ice Baby. I've been told that for a long time I would not go to sleep unless my dad was playing that song. Went platinum in the Turner household.
Kitty Amaya, Field Office Director for Nebraska and Iowa's Field Offices for HUD. In my year, The Tears of a Clown by Smokey Robinson and the Miracles.
I'm Laura Heilman, communications with MAPA, and mine is Hockey Town.
My name is Maui Libadi. I'm a CNO intern here at MAPA. The number one song of my year was Hot in Here by Nelly. That's ridiculous.
We tell. You're too young.
The collective playlist. Lindsay. Pop that.
Lindsay Button, Transportation Planner with MAPA. Mine is Red Red Wine by UB40.
Matt Bolander, also transportation planner with MAPA, and mine was apparently I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith. Everybody.
Homework, man.
Elisa Manuel, Grants and Agreement Specialist with MAPA. Also Olivia Newton-John, Physical. Hey.
My name is Andrew Crescent. I'm the outgoing CNO intern at MAPA. My song was Maria Maria by Santana.
Sue Cuts Ford, Public Information Officer with MAPA, and my song was Ruby Tuesday by the Stones.
Great.
Saul Lopez, Communications and Outreach Coordinator. My song, I think, is Saturday Night by Bay City Rollers.
You wanna sing that? Any bars to that? So feel free. Carlos and Chris, I don't know if you heard the prompt. The number one song, the year and month you were born, please.
Apparently Kenny Rogers.
Okay.
And we'll give Chris a second to look his up. Mike and then Terry virtually.
Hey, everybody. Sorry I'm not joining you in person. Mike Helgerson with the Metropolitan Area Planning Agency. According to Google, it's Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now by Starship, which seemed to have dominated the year I was born.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Terry.
Is the song a year you were born?
Sir.
Goodness, I have no idea in that regard. So that was many, many moons ago. So I'll just go the year I graduated. Terry Hawk from Metro Omaha Education Consortium, and Boston, More Than a Feeling.
Okay. We'll accept that as an honorable mention, Terry. You make your own rules here. Thank you for sharing. Chris, you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's
Yeah,
go.
it's actually a pretty good one. My Sharona by the Nat. I'll take that one.
Okay.
Who are you, Chris?
Oh, I'm Chris, Community Development Director for the City Council.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for indulging me. I really appreciate that. Did we get everyone's song? If you did not create a playlist, we'll get that for you and you're welcome. So without any further ado,
We didn't quite have quorum.
we did not have.
So skipping
Okay,
minute
so
approval.
we otherwise we would need to approve the minutes. So let that be your homework. The next meeting is let's get make sure we have quorum, which is 50% of our voting membership plus one.
It's 15.
15. Okay, and so we'll get that approved next time unless some voting members show up here in the next few minutes. So without that, with that,
let's get rolling with the urban core reconfiguration study. Yes, this.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I can come back in here so we get you. That should be good.
All right. Good morning. Thanks for having us. I've not had the pleasure of being in front of this committee before, so excited to see some new faces, learn some new faces. And we're here to talk about the Omaha Urban Core Street Reconfiguration Study. Next time we'll come up with a shorter title. We did introductions, but this is us. I'm Garrett Tran with the City of Omaha. I'm a traffic engineer in public works.
Jacob Teal, JO Consulting Group, and then also traffic engineering.
All right. So how we got here. This image came from the World Herald in 1954. They rolled out a plan at that time to sunset the streetcar and switch over to buses. And they decided that we needed to have one-way couplets coming in and out of downtown in order to make up for the lack of streetcar. And that has largely remained intact. We started this really intently. Pretty much everything except for Burton Cumming is as it was 70 years ago. This also predates the interstate, so 480 was not here at the time that they did this, which I think was part of the reason they did it. And if you're curious, that was the #1 selling car at the time in 1954. Okay. Box got messed up. But the yellow box was what our planning department defines as the urban core today. So that's bound by the river to the east, Saddle Creek to the west, Cuming Street to the north, and then Leavenworth, and kind of drops down to Pierce on the south side. The red box was different last time I saw this. It matched yeah, the image
Converted to Google
yeah.
Slides, so
Okay.
that might have been.
Yeah. Red box initially matched the image from the last file. All right, so the purpose and need for this study, city leadership for years has been asked if the one-way streets in downtown are still needed or required, and the answer is always we're open to it, but we need some sort of study to tell us if it's feasible or not. So this is that study. Our planning department answered the call for projects from MAPA a few years ago, asking for a study to look at our one-way streets to see if they're still needed, and also they identified a couple of the interstate ramps. There saw some opportunity for redevelopment. Those ramps were removed. So we looked at some of those, a couple of those options. And the funding was STBG funds, which was 80% federal funds and 20% local match. Our scope, like we said, we looked at two-way reconfiguration of streets, and we also looked at some of the streets that were already two-way. We looked at some kind of complete streets ideas for maybe better ways to use them for multimodal purposes, pedestrians, bicycles, things of that nature. So yeah, we looked at it from a safety perspective, a multimodal perspective, and obviously a traffic operations perspective. And then yeah, we also looked at some of the ramp removal and reconfiguration ideas. As part of this, we did get some very high level planning level cost estimates for this, kind of on a per block basis for this, just kind of back of the envelope stuff. And then they also got some very high level kind of benefit scoring for each corridor in terms of implementation, kind of what pros and cons of and ease of implementation for various corridors moving forward. Once we got out of the way, we put together kind of a steering committee that some public works folks, mostly from traffic. Got the Vision Zero coordinator in there, some road design people, Park Omaha, planning department, a couple of folks from MAPA, couple folks in Metro, some NDOT people. We also separately coordinated with the district and traffic folks from NDOT. And then a team from JDO. I know a couple of these guys worked, Lincoln did a similar effort a few years ago, and a couple of these guys worked for Lincoln at the time, so they brought some knowledge. All right, now I'm done talking for a while. Take a pick.
I got one button here. So to begin our process here with it, we kind of had 5 steps as we were operating through the entire design process for this. First began with data gathering. This was getting information from MAPA, City of Omaha, Vision Zero, a couple different resources, NDOT for some of their crash data. Move then to a corridor screening. This was pretty much looking at, are there already previous studies or active studies that are happening along some of these corridors? Are they happening? We're probably not going to study those further for our development, but then moving through, kind of going through that screening. Then moved with the corridors that were chosen to an operational analysis, looking at some of the existing crash data, existing conditions. This developed into concept development. So taking what our recommendations come from that operational analysis, moving and developing high level concepts for it, and then using these concepts, moving to a corridor benefit ranking that you previously mentioned. They start worst with that corridor screening process, and a few different decision process that were used for this. Vision Zero was one, the Cuming Street policy, active mobility plan, a couple other adjacent projects and studies as mentioned previously that were either ongoing or had just been completed. And then our kind of list of screening criteria, some of them were ADTs, corridor speeds, high entry network. So looking again back to Vision Zero.
The ADT.
Average daily traffic. Right there. And then bicycle and pedestrian level of service or LOS then there. So kind of taking look at multimodal, couple different safety speeds, that all different things to get into our process. And then for some of those different additional studies that were referenced within the project and then were previously ongoing or are ongoing now, you can see here, excuse me, go from Leavenworth, Saddle Creek's in there. I have a couple different ones, 40th Street all the way out there. So kind of spanning the entire zone that we showed you previously from that study corridor. But moving to that, we ended up kind of tiering our corridor screening with it to a degree here, probably high level here just for this meeting. No, we have the report coming out pretty soon with it then, but just to go high level for it, tier 1 was typically 1-way to 2-way feasibility reconfiguration along some of these corridors. You can see here over the map, north is to the left for everyone here. It's like I say that somewhat jokingly, but it's gonna flip back and forth quite a bit here. Some figures. So just so you're aware, I'm gonna try to point that out each time. But tier 1 is in blue here. You can see running along there. Say over to the far right, over by Garrett, you have Leavenworth and St. Mary's that are running east to west. But then tier 2, then street reconfiguration feasibility. This was typically streets that are already 2-way that we're looking at for some level of reconfiguration. These are in orange on the map. At the very left, closest to me, you can see Cuming. 30th Street runs down at the very bottom. 40th Street, I guess, is at the very bottom. 30th Street, right there in the middle. And then tier 3, I can flip to the next slide. These are lower volume, higher feasibility corridors that are looking for reconfiguration, typically with lower costs. This probably happened with street resurfacing, a couple different projects. It'd probably be lumped in with another project that's ongoing in the area. So it wouldn't be a full large scale design and reconfiguration project. So you can see a couple different projects there. And some of these end up tying in with some of the tier 1 or tier 2, but typically a lot of them are more standalone for it. But
on the tier 2 stuff, is that
yes
designed to be like 2-way going to perhaps 1-way? Is that what that's?
We did not do any studies on that. That's a good question. We did not do any studies of going from 2-way to 1-way. This is typically maintaining 2-way and doing some level of lane reconfiguration, adding bike lanes. We'll talk about the constraints here in a little bit with it, but yeah, good question. Yeah, typically it's maintaining 2-way along those corridors. Tier 3 then again. And then for our existing analysis, typically when we were looking at a lot of our operations using Synchro and some other analysis tools, we saw some level of service challenges throughout the map with it, typically at major cross corridor connections. There weren't any huge operational issues with it, I'd say, in there, at least existing wise. But however, as we move more towards a future growth percentage, I can't remember what the design date was. I can't remember if it was 2040 or 2045, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
I think it was 20 year.
2050 maybe.
That may be it, yeah. I can't remember the exact number, but yes, somewhere in the fairly close future, 20+ years, looking for it. We start to see some deterioration of some of these corridors, especially if they maintain as they are at the current rate. But say map here again. Now north is up on the map. This is our crash data analysis map here. This kind of looking at a heat map of all crashes that happened along just our corridors here. So it does look a little weird. It's just the corridors that we have listed for tier 1 through tier 3. But you can see some very hot pockets around the Omaha Metro here in our study area. But pretty much from a lot of this analysis, we were looking at opportunities to improve operations and mobility, as well as increase safety for both vehicle users as well as multimodal, so peds, bikes, etc. From that concept, I'm going to get back to Derek here.
Keep that out. So we came up with some constraints to kind of narrow the focus as much as we could, given the size of the study area. So we said we had to stay within the existing right of way. We initially said you have to stay within the existing curb line as you get into it. We kind of found some opportunities where bump out at an intersection was like preventing from carrying a bike lane through. So we said we don't want just one little bump out to stop us from putting a bike lane on this corridor. So you'll see in some of the options where it calls out for modifying a curb line here and there, but nothing crazy. We said we had to maintain acceptable vehicle operations, and consider multimodal things, bikes, pedestrians, bus stops, things of that nature. So just trying to make it as simple as possible going forward, to narrow the focus on the concepts as much as we can. So that, back to Jacob.
So I have a couple exhibits here. When the full report comes out, we do have a separate section with about 120 pages of exhibits for all our corridors here, but got a couple snippets to show you here. First one here, again, north is up. St. Mary's Avenue, this is from 19th Street, which is on the left, to 17th Street is just off to the right. You can see here, as Garrett talked about, we have a couple bump outs that are some curb removal and reconfiguration there on the far right, to add in a separated bike lane along St. Mary's. Typically, for what we showed from our recommendation on this corridor is a separated bikeway on St. Mary's. This is pretty much a two-way reconfiguration of St. Mary's and Leavenworth. Leavenworth maintaining more of the typical traffic motor vehicle with a 3-lane cross section, 1 lane each way, 2-way left turn lane in the middle. St. Mary's then some level of 3-lane cross section, but typically trying to keep that separated bikeway in there. Have a median access, this to restrict some movement here. Say one of the bigger changes here, other than St. Mary's is obviously reconfigured to 2-way, 19th Street is also reconfigured to 2-way here, is this section over here to the left. Currently Jackson Street runs through and connects into St. Mary's at this point in time. I believe actually this section of Jackson is also 1-way under existing conditions and has a reconfiguration to 2-way. Currently connects into St. Mary's. This would be ending that, adding a right in, right out, promoting some safety conflict areas through some of this area with this intersection. Basically trying to clean up some of these areas that if we were to reconfigure from 1-way to 2-way would be pretty hazardous if we didn't have some of these drawbacks in. Say second example then would be 13th Street. North arrow is now to the right. This shows Harney, that's on the left, Farnham, that's on the right. 13th Street, currently one-way, under here reconfigured to two-way. 3-lane cross section with bike lanes running along both sides there. I can see a couple other curb bump outs that have been removed in here, just minor ones with it. This also includes the streetcar. I don't know if you can see it very well, but there is a very light kind of pink running through here. That is the proposed streetcar that is being built at this time with it, as well as on Harney, the market-to-market separated bikeway would be running through this section.
And for those that aren't super familiar with 13th Street, 13th Street is a little funky. It connects Highway 80 to 480, and it goes through a section that Little Bohemia, where it's a two-way 4-lane section. Once you cross the bridge past Leavenworth, I believe, it starts turning into a one-way street all the way to 480, and then it returns to a two-way condition. And so that in and of itself is a little disruptive, but it's really trying to push people out of the downtown for one thing. And people do tend to use that, and it does get a little congested during the peak hours. The majority of the time, however, it's a pretty light street. One of the things I've experienced at 13th Street and Jackson and kind of this area as a whole is we do have a lot of tourists in and around that area that don't seem to pay attention to the one-way streets. And so you end up seeing a lot of weird scenarios where people are driving the wrong way on a one-way. And if you've ever been in that situation and you happen to be on a bike, walking, or even in your car, it's pretty frightening. Right? You're railing on your horn, you're like pulling your hands out the windows and kind of trying to get these people to go the right way. But just a little context for the street and why some of these changes are being looked at, right? Not only is the safety aspect a very important thing, but also the opportunity of adding additional eyes, making the street a little bit more continuous throughout this corridor. Sorry.
No, you're all good, Carlos. Thank you for the context. I'd say, yeah, that adds in then to actually, as he talked about, our entire section that he described from 13th Street further south, and then further north that are the current two-way sections. Those are also included as part of our study and part of that tier 2. This is the tier 1 section. 14th Street also to the north that actually has the ramp that comes off of 480. Not shown anywhere in here, but that's up further to the right with it, that be northwest of here, has the ramp, and that 14th Street would be another two-way reconfiguration couplet along with 13th here that have shown within the full report. Moving on, and taking a break here, you can say as described here, you can see the 14th Street ramp there at the very top part then, north now to the left. But kind of looking at some of the ramp analysis, basically what we're doing here is with some of these two-way reconfigurations or different changes, some of these ramps obviously wouldn't work. 20th Street would be one of them that currently is one way running down south from Dodge down there. But a lot of this was looking at either some redevelopment sections in some of these areas, as well as how future operations could be impacted just if things stay the same as existing, as well as if there is this two-way reconfiguration happens. So I have a couple different ramps here. I guess the different colors other than red, you can see some of the redevelopment or current development areas. Green up at the top is the Project Beacon Mutual Omaha site. Excuse me, this purple then is kind of the Civic Corner development. It's going through some phases right now, some changes. And then we have a couple orange and green then that if these ramps are either relocated or removed, there is some potential redevelopment area. But kind of looking through this at some of these different ramps, basically from the analysis that we had ended up showing that none of the ramps can end up being removed in their entirety. It just causes a lot of stress and changes to some of the other ramps within the corridor, within other parts of the corridor. So 13th and 14th to the north, you have Leavenworth, Harney, a couple of them down here around 28th and 29th that are on ramps and off ramps there too. So pretty much kind of what it showed from our high level impact is that these ramps would have to be relocated if there were changes that were to happen. And we do show within our concepts some reconfiguration of these. Probably the main one is these 30th ramps that are going down to 30th Street currently would be connected to 29th and Dodge Street. And then the 2 ramps up here would be a reconfiguration to connect up to 17th Street. But again, any of that happens in the future, there would be much further design process if this was to happen. Yes, there, yeah, kind of went through some of the findings already, so skip ahead. From these corridor screening and then all development, these concepts we created, then we created a benefit ranking system. This was kind of looking at some different high-level operations, so they go through the criteria here. Traffic operations kind of already talked about. High-level planning costs, again, as Garrett mentioned earlier, very high level. If there was a design that would happen, there would be much further analysis done for that. Constructability, kind of looking at if this were to go in, how would it impact surrounding areas? What would it take to build these? Safety benefit, again, for all 3. Multimodal, head bike, traffic, different things. Pedestrian bike connectivity, and then also adjacent redevelopment opportunities. But flip here to the next screen. As here you can see some of the corridors that we ended up having for each of these tier 1, 2 corridors. But you can see we had a point scale for each of these corridors with it for all 6 of the different scoring values. And you can see here kind of through it, a lot of these, there's pretty tight bundles for a lot of these, for these different corridors, which makes sense. A lot of them are going to be, they end up scoring pretty similarly scored going through here. And I guess the big caveat looking at this too is this isn't a strict 1 to 12, 1 to 11 list that we're going to start with 15th and we're going to move down, or tier 1 as an example. We're going to start with 15th and we're going to move all the way down to the 17th north. No, it's as the city gets these projects or different things, or if there's different funding opportunities or different development that happens in the area, they can pick and choose as they go through here. It's just kind of showing here from a perspective with this corridor benefit, which of these corridors may benefit the most. And I guess one last caveat then too for tier 1 is a lot of these corridors would be done all at once, considering it's a 1-way to 2-way reconfiguration. And they would probably be done as couplets then too. So see Leavenworth here at 2, St. Mary's there. You probably wouldn't do one and not the other given the current setup. But the application, throw it back to Garrett here.
So, yeah, so where do we go from here? From the city perspective, we're gonna take these concepts forward and try to turn them into future projects. We currently have no funding identified. So we're gonna look at possibly grant funding, such as SS4A. We might try to add some of the bigger ones into our CIP. Some of the smaller ones we can probably attach to resurfacing projects. There'd be some more of the tier 3 ones. Just, yeah, exploring all options going forward at this point. We're in the brainstorming phase of funding. And then hopefully this report should be posted very soon on our Keep Omaha Moving webpage. I gave it to the folks that run our website. And I checked right before the meeting, it's not up yet, but hopefully in the next couple days, it should be out there in all its glory. Ready to read. So with that, I think that's all we got. So if anybody got any more questions.
Great questions for Garrett and Jason.
I got one, Keith. So I don't know, probably about 2 or 3 years ago, I remember going to a presentation with Doug Basson in HDR, and he was working with the Urban Core Committee. And one of the things that they were discussing at that time was bringing 480 like down to grade, actually, and then putting a lid over 480 where like Harney and Farnham Street connect into Midtown. Is that still happening? Is that part of the discussion? I didn't see any of that addressed in your presentation, so I don't know where that's.
Yeah, I know that is still very pie in the sky future things at this point.
Okay.
I know it was mentioned at the very beginning that there is a planning document out there somewhere to get rid of the elevated part of 480, but yeah, there wasn't any momentum for that in the near future, so we kind of assumed status quo.
Politically motivation or just an engineering motivation?
Both.
Great question.
Mostly political, probably.
Okay. I was just curious. It was
Yeah.
an interesting concept. That's all. Something very transformative in that area. I felt. Yeah.
I will say that it's something we were aware of when we were looking through some of our documentation, different thing for the project, but it wasn't something we addressed as part of the project here, at least this document.
Yeah, and I think there's additional studies going on, like the 30th and 480 off ramp where that giant hill sits. That's currently being looked at. I think it's nicknamed the Stitch for some development. So removal of those ramps in order to add additional development and reconfiguring some of the streets to make it more pedestrian friendly to go along with what's going on at Midtown Crossing, et cetera, et cetera. So there are a couple pockets, but I don't think that portion of 480 has been looked at holistically, nor any concept or looking at lidding 480 or 75 South through that. I think part of it is there has been such a large investment with the streetcar on those two major bridges, Barnum and Harney bridges, that I don't think there is a lot of political will to look and spend more money on that right now. Maybe in 10, 20 years, look at the long term.
Sure. Carlos the politician, very nice. I have a question, and when I ask you, you'll clearly see that I'm not an engineer. So what do we generally believe about, the city of Omaha, believe about the need to reconfigure one ways to two ways or vice versa? Are we at a point where we think we should maximize that opportunity? Is it just certain spots? Is it do it all because one way is an antiquated way to move people around urban core areas? What do we believe is the best practice for an urban core like ours?
Well, I think what we proved here is that it's feasible to remove the one-way couplets and it won't negatively affect the traffic. The challenge going forward would be the conversion. I know we didn't list any dollar signs here, but it's not cheap. The highest cost is the traffic signal cost. Because you only have two poles on a one-way to one-way, and if you're going two-way to two-way, you gotta build two more poles, you gotta rebuild half the intersection at each one down the corridor. So I think there is some momentum to try to convert some of these to one-way at this point. But yeah, it's coming up with funding. And then designing the details. These are very high-level concepts that we have here. So trying to find money to design these and then construct them, I think is the next hurdle.
Sure.
Going forward, but
I'll say then too, that we had a question at one of our previous meetings that presented at then too, that kind of looking at some of these corridors, there are areas where because we were sticking to the right of way most of the time with it, that as you're kind of moving through, there's very large offsets, 20th and Dodge, you know, the intersection right around there by Omaha Central, pretty large one that if that reconfiguration happened to go two ways, it wouldn't just be what our concept is showing there. There would have to be a full reconfiguration to align the street much better. So it's again, as talking about these high level planning costs, kind of using what we had here with it, whereas it probably will be higher, as Garrett said. So not cheap.
So two questions. One is kind of around what's the overall, the transit oriented development concept? And how was that kind of how did that play into this? And then secondly, was there any consideration of physically closing any streets?
I know we did some coordination with Metro on the bus routes, kind of what they would look like in a two-way scenario, how ones would shift from St. Mary's to Leavenworth or vice versa. And
I know like for like showing 13th Street there with it currently bus routes with the one way run down 14th and 13th, that would probably be a move over to 13th then too. So they were taken into account with it then too. I know we have further out west, I showed 31st and Perna Boulevard, Park Avenue. We actually have 31st closing to access to Harney as part of one of our concepts. in there. So that would move the bus route that runs along 30th currently from 30th over at Dodge and Douglas, then run down to Park Avenue and run further south from there. So there were considerations. I think one of the big things we didn't touch was any of the orbit bus stops for the most part. As a lot of that's built infrastructure and would be expensive to move around. But yeah, there would have to be coordination if this one-way to two-way reconfiguration happens with some of the different metro bus routes.
And then where the intent of my question really is kind of getting at how can we eliminate a lot of these single occupancy vehicles from the downtown core area and maybe incentivize having folks either taking transit into that core or getting their vehicles left out of the core and then taking transit into the core type of thing. And obviously that has its own set of issues. But again, just I look at various other cities that have somewhat closed streets off or completely closed streets off and basically turned it into a pedestrian mall type of thing. And I think we ought to give consideration to some of those kinds of things. Like, you know, we just have this car mentality that I've got to be able to drive right here and park right in front of this. No, you don't have to.
No, I get that. Yeah. Unfortunately, that wasn't part of our study is closure of any road, but we did try to factor in streetcar, different multimodal, because right now a lot of the bike infrastructure, especially in downtown, is fairly fractured moving around with it too. So it was trying to find connections so that you can park somewhere else with it here and you can bike over, you can walk over, use the streetcar, these different multimodal opportunities to get around there too. And we did analyze some of the parking then too, is another question we had previously, looking around the corridor, and there are some areas that have removal that maybe that leads to vehicles they may travel down there, but they're not parking and traveling in and out of there. Instead, they're going elsewhere. There are places that we added parking to, but they, again, very high level part of it too, that would need further study going forward.
Yeah, we did. I know the question was asked at the beginning about making the old market pedestrian only. But at that time, there was not any political will to do that. I know that was the previous administration at the start, so I don't know what the current administration feels, but yeah, that's more of a political answer. I know discussion, there's probably not a traffic engineering need to have vehicles, at least commuter vehicles through the old market. You probably have to figure out how to get deliveries and stuff to businesses in the old market, but yeah, that was not considered as part of this study. I was squashed at the very beginning, unfortunately.
Can I ask about Dodge Street and that?
So yeah, Dodge and Douglas, we did look at the tier 2 level. But as we got into it, that being a state highway, there was a lot of competing interests between the city and the state as to what that would look like going forward. And then there's also the consideration of those ramps or the bridges at 10th Street to go into Iowa. Even if you were to two-way both, to get people kind of zigzagging along 10th Street to get to those bridges would be complicated, given the lack of right of way there. So giving all the kind of complexities of Douglas would ultimately remove those from the study. I know, which was kind of disappointing, but it just became too complicated. That's got into it.
It's the same with Hardy then at Farnham, that both would maintain one way just with the streetcar and a lot of the current projects and competing interests going on with there too.
Well, if there aren't any more questions in the room and more.
Yeah, I think we got one.
Okay, and then make sure Mike and Terry are. Go for it.
Yeah, so I think a lot of great points. I mean, old markets and, you know, the traffic concerns there, some of the one ways that just kind of change, like some of that, a lot of that has been brought up. And recognizing that in Omaha, there's kind of a lot of armchair experts when it comes to traffic and parking and things like that, right now, downtown access, where, if you had to take a guess of where kind of the pulse and what's going to create, I say the least amount of grumbles, because there's going to be grumbles regardless,
are people comfortable if they're seeing the 3 and 4 lane one-way road that just feels like this is gonna get me in and out of downtown super quick? If that changes to a 2-way where it's maybe, one in each direction with a bike lane and a center, is that going to, further hurt? Is the conversion of one-ways or one-ways too confusing for people where we're gonna see some more comfort when it comes to, navigating downtown? Where would you see, again, the kind of the least amount of grumbles when it comes to some of these conversions?
I don't know, that was difficult to say. We didn't really do a ton of public outreach because this was just a planning study. But yeah, I think people are probably ready for it. We'll see how they respond to the streetcar. Farnham and Hardy are gonna be narrowed, just 2 vehicle lanes each way. So we'll see how that goes. And see as people, I would think going to 2-way is gonna clean up 13th Street is obviously a very, very wonky corridor. So I think generally to be positive as long as we're going through a future design process for a corridor, there would have to be a lot of public outreach.
I will say
to sell it, but I think with good talking points, I think we should be able to accomplish it.
I will say not all one-way corridors are going to, as mentioned previously, Dodge, Douglas, Harney, and Farnham would, at least for the process of this feasibility study, maintaining one-way there. So a lot of east-west major connections, a lot more north-south. I guess Leavenworth and St. Mary's would be one, but there too. One of the corridors we did analyze them to and actually recommended maintaining one-way was 15th Street through there. And a lot of that is because of the Project Beacon ongoing project that they have there. They kind of have their development around their area and the way they're wanting everything laid out and their parking infrastructure for what they're building in. So we ended up maintaining 15th Street with a one-way route through there because of that. So again, I think it's a lot of opportunities that show up, and that's how we'll kind of move through the feasibility and reconfiguration.
Was the downtown improvement district a part of the study at all?
So we worked with the urban core committee, which I think includes a lot of the downtown BID. And then when we finished the study, we went back to them and they were like, we don't exist. So that was kind of unfortunate, but we got some initial feedback from them at the beginning. I know generally positive. People saw a need for it, were excited for it at that time.
Just one last one, I promise you. So I just want to build on what Chris said. That's actually a good question, Chris. Right now, you guys are going through a comprehensive plan and through We Make Omaha. I mean, through any of those public engagement processes, did comments come out about the reconfiguration of the roadways in the urban core that you guys could build off those? I mean, it seems like a pretty extensive planning study you went to, and you haven't really checked to see how the public's going to receive it at all. I mean, I think you may have some data out there that could give you some guidance on if this would be well received or not yet at this point.
So yeah, I haven't been a part of that effort. But yeah, I would think it seems generally positive, the feedback we have gotten from people that this would be a good thing. Mostly just trying to build momentum to find funding first to say we could even afford to do some of this. And then take concepts to people as we identify corridors, start doing this.
I'd say too, I don't think this is the next 5 years, all of this is gonna happen either, from what it sounds like either. It's a pretty long-term plan for feasibility going forwards then. So we'll see exactly as things develop.
That was a good point, Chris, and I'll just say that the city went through took great pains to do public engagement for Vision Zero, which is incorporated here in We Make Omaha, right? And so we know that we need that feedback and input. And it makes me think about were either y'all at the developer symposium yesterday? Yesterday, the Land Bank Spark Front Porch did that R2U summit yesterday, and it was a breakout focused on urban core, and they talked about some of the land use and planned. Were you at that session, the breakout?
I was in a community lending session.
Just there is a ramp at where is that at, that is being contemplated to be maybe removed for affordable housing, but just some of the data that was captured there could be good to look at as well. So But this is good. This is helpful. Thank y'all. I think we better move on. Most of the time. Thank you. Y'all please hang out. Feel free to stay with us and we'll go to the next section.
Yeah, I think unfortunately I need to get out, but it's I have the email up there.
Okay.
If anybody has any questions or anything,
Yeah.
feel free to reach out to us.
Thanks, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thanks. Thank you. So let's transition to I can't wait for this recap. The 2050 site visit to Detroit.
So this can be collaborative because we've got a couple people who were on the site visit and also have attended other site visits. So if I get too much, just tell me to go on. I'm trying to keep it down. We have probably, I don't know, 3,000 photos from this trip. So it was hard not to capture everything, but just some general information about learning site visits. There's our website there. It's heartland2050.org/LSV for learning site visits. We've started doing these in 2016. There's the map of all the places we went before Detroit. It's about 20 or 30 people. They were larger in the past, but that's very difficult to manage logistically. So we've hovered around 20 for the past few trips. The idea is to connect our local leaders with experts in these peer or aspirational cities to learn about transformative projects, whether transportation, community development, those kinds of things. Right now, we're planning these every other year. It's about 3 or 4 days in the spring. We've been going about in May. So part of it's just we're doing presentations, we're going out and visiting things and trying to use as many different types of transportation options as possible, which we got to do in Detroit, so that's fun. Here's our roster of who went. So there was 20 total. We do take 5 MAPA staff as well. A few of us to kind of run the program, and then we also have a transportation and community development person attend just to kind of get to meet people and talk. A lot of the focus of this is kind of networking and people meeting each other. I'm always surprised by how many people do not know each other. So I think that's also a good part of it. And we kind of put you through some common stressors. So like traveling together and catching your flights and all of that. So it really is kind of a nice bonding experience. We hope, I guess. Cost is generally around $2,000. We thought it might be a little more this time just with everything that's going on, but we keep it at that. We only charge what it costs us to put it on. We pay for our own staff to go. And then this year we also have an officials fund for members of our board or council who would like to attend. So we also sponsored 3 people to attend as well, who sit on our committee. Some of the topics we'll go through pretty heavy, but overall it's regional planning. That's what we do. So we have a obviously bias towards kind of regional planning, transit and trail oriented development, historic preservation, reuse, and then placemaking and economic development. I printed this for you guys because I thought you might want to see it. Plus it's cool. Plus there's only about 20 people who ever get to see it overall. But this is our itinerary over a few days. So it was 4 days this time. Day 1 was kind of a meeting here. We heard from the Omaha Airport Authority, which was nice, had lunch and traveled. But we'll go through some of the itinerary stuff. And then there's also a nice map that we develop every time that highlights what we're working on or where we're going, the places that we want to see. I am going to talk a little bit about the Q line streetcar, which is this pink one with dots, and then the people mover is that purple one. And the yellow line is our little bike tour line, so you can see where we went. So I'll just run through a few of the highlights. So we started off day 2 in the morning with a downtown Detroit walking tour. We worked with your organization, the regional planning organization there, which is called SEMCOG, Southeast Michigan Council of Governments. So really just kind of orient ourselves in the downtown space, kind of see how everything's connected and get the feel of that. You can see some cute team pictures. We also got to see some historic buildings here. This is the Guardian building. You can't really see here, but there is kind of everybody's looking there at where the center of Detroit is, and then everything kind of radiates out from that. So, and then of course our We Love Detroit sign opportunity. After that, we got to go on a bike tour. So you'll see the yellow line here, but we got to see quite a few things. The riverfront was voted the #1 riverfront in the nation. So it was really cool to get to see that and all of the trails that they've connected. We worked with Detroit Riverfront Conservancy. This is their offices. Just a full view of the city, lovely. So we got to see that. and go through kind of the trail system along the riverfront, to their brand new park. Centennial Park just opened in October of last year, so very brand new, a lot like our riverfront downtown and some of the stuff that we've put downtown. So very similar to that.
Did it really feel like the best riverfront bike tour in the US?
I don't know, I think Omaha has, we might have to.
I'm just saying.
We might have to vie for that, but it was good to see. It was good to see that I felt like that we were comparable to what was the brand new stuff that they were putting in. So I thought it was great. I mean, we had a lot of fun. We got to play some basketball. And just see a couple different of their trails and roll through Corktown. We also got to see, we haven't done a lot of sports oriented stuff in these trips before, but Detroit has a lot of professional teams. So we saw both the old Tiger Stadium, which is now called the Quarter Ballpark. We also saw Comerica Park, where the Tigers now play, which I'll show you in a minute. But currently it's run by Detroit Police Athletic League. So I thought of this a lot like Rosenblatt, and kind of how they had a stadium in the middle of a neighborhood, and there was a lot of stuff kind of built formally and informally around the stadium and come into that. And so then when it was moved downtown, there was kind of a big loss of attraction and whatever in that neighborhood. So bringing that back and utilizing it for the community. They do a ton of events there. They have a lot of really good history. I think they were really thoughtful about keeping some of the history alive, of not just the stadium, but sports in Detroit overall. Kind of, they have a walk of fame, walk of heroes, I guess. So I thought that was really interesting as well. Exploring the people mover and Q line streetcar. So we do try to get out and explore all the different types of transit available. I guess I missed, we did take their, they have a DAX airport shuttle that is just a bus, very nice bus, that runs only from downtown to the airport. So that's all it is. It's a $6 ticket. So we did take that. I should have included that here. But the people mover is like an elevated loop that just the monorail that just runs in a loop around downtown. I think it's a 12-minute cycle. It's free. There's a couple buses on it, or a couple trains on it. So
Very safety focused. They want to make sure you don't stand on the yellow.
It won't stand on the yellow.
Oh, John got yelled at. So that's really interesting. And we're looking also at the development that's oriented around that. So each stop really has its own kind of feel. There's the separate artwork at each stop, really integrated into the neighborhood around it, because it is like elevated. So there's a lot of really good signage. So that was really interesting to see. That's opened in 1987. And did I say free to ride? Q-Line streetcar also free to ride, pretty new, I guess 10 years almost now, but opened in 2017. It's just got that one line north to south. But it really does start kind of downtown in the core, basically at the riverfront. It goes up through several neighborhoods. So again, an interesting thing to kind of see where they wanted it to start, what neighborhoods is it going through, where are the stops at, that kind of thing. We also like to get out from the kind of city center and the city neighborhoods to go to a satellite community or a suburban community. So we got out to see Novi. Don't say it wrong. But Novi, Michigan is about 30 minutes outside of Detroit. So we stopped at a few different kind of, we called it parks and places, because they had a lot of kind of park activity going on. They had an art park. They had some brand new like sports fields. They have this ITC community sports park that we saw that coincides with a large trail that goes through the area. And so a very interesting shopping center that was developed specifically with Asian American market in mind. So they were very thoughtful and about which businesses they wanted to pull into there. And so we got to see some interesting businesses and hear about that. Okay, we also, like I said, we went to Comerica Park, again, to just kind of everything in Detroit, if you'll see here, that is like, the stadium is right on a people mover station. It's right next to Ford Field. There's kind of this entertainment district. everything is right close together, which is very interesting. And then they also did some, I think, interesting historical things, to kind of keep the old, just kind of bridge the old and the new. And I think they were very thoughtful about how the stadium was designed, kind of it's meant to look over the city and give a great view of the city. They just were thoughtful about quite a few things, but also don't touch the grass. Do not touch the grass. Learned about that. We also stopped to a couple neighborhoods. So Greektown is undergoing a major renovation. They are actually closing one of their streets mostly. Is that am I being accurate about that?
Reduce traffic.
Reducing traffic, I would say.
So it's gonna keep one lane of traffic that goes one way, but they are closing it Friday evening through the weekends, was my understanding. But the rest of the time, I think it was gonna be open still to one-way traffic.
So that is a major street that comes from downtown, and the whole streetscape corridor is getting revamped, but specifically through Greektown. So much like our streetcar businesses that are around our streetcar construction, they were just having to deal with a lot of construction, signage, a lot of that. It's been probably about a year and a half of that. They're getting close to kind of finalizing, but they added some great plaza spaces, and I think they're very excited for that to move forward. We also got to go to, I don't know if this was one of the highlights of the trip for me, and we almost didn't get to go, but we kind of got that last minute arranged. But Michigan Central train station was a huge, amazing building that was left after they were no longer using it as a train station. It was left for a long time. I don't know, how long did they say, 20, 30 years? Just completely deteriorating. They didn't have enough money to knock it down. It was, I think, $1 billion reinvestment. So it kind of, I did include one picture here, which is hard to see, but it had been kind of graffitied, taken over, used for different video shoots. It was really just demolishing. It kind of was the symbol of Detroit kind of collapsing and going into bankruptcy. That has had $1 billion invested in it and now is completely remade. And is part of the Michigan Central Innovation District. They work with New Lab, which they're trying to innovate on mobility options. So they have a district there and they can kind of test out different mobility options. They have a variety of kind of entrepreneurship things all around transportation mobility, and they use that space there.
Who ended up paying for it or investing in it?
Ford Motor
Ford. Yeah, Ford.
Okay.
And I think it may actually be a train station again shortly here in the future. So Amtrak, I think, is announcing that they will be going there again. But pretty incredible space, and just I think it's more about the programmings around that. This is also in that same neighborhood where the old Tiger Stadium was, and there was a lot of disinvestment when they moved that. So now we're seeing a ton more reinvestment back in the neighborhood. They do a neighborhood framework plan for different neighborhoods. So we heard a little bit about that from the city. And just kind of really trying to be thoughtful and holistic about redeveloping that area. I don't know about that. Who knows? So I will invite our people who attended to add some extra thoughts, but I did just want to note that coming up next, we're going to go back to Salt Lake City. It was the first place that we did a learning site visit to in 2016. So I think that'll be really interesting to kind of go back and see what's different, what's changed. They had just come off of hosting the Olympics. I don't know what year that was. So yeah, they were either prepping for it or just come off the Olympics the first time they hosted when we went in 2016. And now they are prepping again to host that the second time. So I think it'll be really interesting to go a little bit ahead of that Olympics and see what they learned from the first time, how they modified that for the second time. A lot of the development of the Heartland 2050 vision and why we're sitting in this room today and why we asked you guys to come together and talk about our work and tell us what we're doing right and wrong was based on work done in Salt Lake City. So when I went and looked at their plan and all of their stuff, it is so referential. It's really, really interesting. And I'm making.
Is this your ask?
No. No, So Lindsay Neiman went to school in Salt Lake City, so I told her that she's on my planning team, and Zach had a lot of comments on this trip, so he's also on my planning team for next time. We do.
Just to tell you.
Yeah.
We volunteer.
This is how it works. But we do have we will keep what we've never had before this, maybe like 6 months before this trip, but we've got an online kind of like application form just to submit that you're interested in going. We've never had that, but we're just gonna keep that live all the time to just kind of be making sure that we're reaching out to people that we aren't currently in our orbit, that there's people from the public that could say, oh, I'm really interested in, I want to learn about this. So I don't know if anybody who went on the trip wants to say anything, or people who have been on multiple trips and wants to compare it, or.
I think it was a three-timer here. I think it was a beautifully curated group of people. Lord, y'all did a great job there. My perspective on Detroit has changed, you know, and with a lot of aspects of it struck me, but we were there. The date pattern was Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to be downtown and see what parts of town were buzzing in this major metro area when the NBA playoffs were happening, and which parts of town weren't. So that was interesting. We had a resident Canadian ambassador with us. Lindsay was able to speak on that. So Jody Holston and I shot over to Windsor and had a Canadian experience for a little bit.
I don't know if I would want to say that Windsor, Ontario is the Canadian.
A foreign crossing experience.
There you go.
And so that was cool. But it was just really good to be on the ground there, to see Detroit is talked about as a city that's been disinvested in one of those places that when the industry leaves, you know, and then industry is investing in the rebuilding of that town in a way that Lamptey maybe does here. And so it's an interesting thing to compare. But I thought it was you guys did a great job of putting this trip together. The biking was awesome, the riverfront was awesome. The ballpark was awesome. The people were amazing. It's a really, really cultured town. So I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, likewise. I will say quick, what was really neat about not just the train station and innovation space that they had. They actually have the zoning overlay, or like within a certain geography of that space that allows them to put charging cells in the concrete so they can kind of test self-charging cars as they drive down the road. It was an interesting concept because maybe San Jose is another one of the cities that has an innovation district. So when you think about Omaha's interested in, Port Authority is interested in doing innovation district, all these things, it's like, okay, well, how else can we leverage some of these tools? And so it's always helpful to have peer cities and others who've already done it, so we can kind of pick their brain to figure it out of like, great, let's do a zoning overlay so we can be more innovative and be maybe unrestricted from some of the existing zoning codes, say, case of housing. So it's nice to have those specific examples and then contacts to reach out to talk to how they did it, both politically and, all the things.
I think you hit on one of the great things about these trips, which is obviously we're trying to get stuff done in our community, right? Well, it's great to go see other communities that are either also doing it or have done it and learn from them. What have they done? We talked about the old Tigers Field, and their organization is essentially Pace in Omaha. So like you start making these correlations between this communities and our community and just putting the pieces together and how they got things done, making those connections. Yeah. Their riverfront versus our riverfront, just a lot of stuff that is good to see that other communities can get done, which means we can get it done as well. And then learning how. Yeah. And then too, just the connections. I mean, long flights, spending four days together. It's good to make the connections so that we all know what's going on, what we're all working on, and how we move forward together.
If any of the MAPA staff wanna chime in?
I mean, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great opportunity as a staff level planner to be able to take advantage of something like this. Often it's kind of reserved for like our upper echelons, as it were, but I think it's important for those of us that are kind of doing more like on the ground stuff to get exposure to that as well. So I was really, really appreciative for that opportunity. I'm gonna echo what Keith said, that like the people that we met in Detroit, like every single one of them were just like gems. So I mean, that was a really big awesome case for me. I thought their bikeway was really cool. I will say that, I heard from our MAPA board meeting this week that Mayor Shudak is now buying herself a bike because of this trip and being able to go on that bike ride, and she just loved it so much that now she's gonna be a biker. So that was pretty cool and exciting too. So I thought that was a lot of good stuff.
Bike,
What?
an e-bike?
I don't know what kind of bike she's gonna get. All she said was she's buying a bike. So
They were disappointed it wasn't e-bikes in
So, when we
Detroit,
did-
but
when we did the bike trip in Detroit, they were just regular bikes, but I think because it was so flat, it was pretty, and we were biking down to the waterfront, so it was like, it was like making it the fun kind of biking, right?
yeah, we did like 4 miles in 3 hours or something, 5 miles in 3 hours. So I was like, I think it's a fine case.
The only thing I'll say is I just really appreciated how the city has kind of leaned into preservation and Laura, like you said, with the ballpark example, kind of bridging past with the present. Detroit has a lot of amazing, great architecture, and it was probably a blessing in disguise when the city didn't have the funds to demolish their train station, because on the back end, it will be redeveloped. Now, not every city has a Ford Foundation, but I mean, the principle, the framework is the same. So I just really appreciated how city has really taken a concerted effort to conserve and preserve the past when there was so much blight and disinvestment and decay.
And yeah, in addition to kind of that lucky, I don't think they thought it lucky at the time, but they were bankrupt when they were planning to demolish a lot of their older buildings. The city went bankrupt, if you're familiar with that story. And were able to do so. And that was one of the things I heard most from people on the trip, was how incredible the architecture was. And I mean, there was so much renovation and new building happening in the downtown, just completely. But yeah, a lot of the old buildings did get preserved. There was also, similar to here, there's kind of high levels of philanthropy, and also one takeaway was, there was really maybe 1 or 2 or 3 really big developers that were kind of working and really, and it's similar to here. I think that you can get lucky and have somebody who's really thoughtful and wants to do good things for the city and is trying to be respectful of history and respectful of all of that. I think it's a lucky thing whether you get people who want to be that way or not. So if you're lucky and that's what happens, but if you're not, then how do you kind of functionally welcome all of that money and development, but also put some nice boundaries on that so that it is beneficial to the city as a whole. And I don't know if anybody else had any other takeaways, or did you guys have questions for us, or has anybody been in Detroit like maybe 10 years ago and are surprised to see some of the changes? I know Sue has a nice storied long history with Detroit, but.
I lived in Detroit before I moved here, and I was there when there was a lot of still the decay and the disinvestment. And there have been multiple attempts throughout the years to try and, counteract that and start the investment and redevelopment going. But I was back there a year ago, like a year before this learning site visit, and just to see the change that had happened in those years was incredible. It was just, very uplifting and very inspiring. It's great to see.
That's one of the things I tell people about Omaha too. It's like, if you haven't been here in 10 years, you need to come back and see, because it's completely different. And I feel like that's a little bit of what happened, right? But any other questions or thoughts before we move on? Okay, sweet, thanks for letting me show all my pictures. Or like 1/20th of all the pictures.
They have the selfie stations in the downtown.
Get that.
You walk up to the kiosk deal and take a picture and then send it to your phone or email, whatever. That's pretty cool. We need some of those down here. It's just really cool things like that. We have a lot of cool things here too. They have like a rhythm and play in the park during the day where the kids they had a DJ come set up in there, like our riverfront park, and just DJ and play. People would come and hang out. And they had a graffiti museum is what they called it, which was an area along the bike trail that is a graffiti museum, just unofficially, but officially under the bridge. And it was just really cool things that, like Grant said, they lean into things that kind of bridge the maintaining the character of what the city was and what it will be again. So really cool. Let's move on to committee updates. Ashley, you were up first.
Hi, everyone. Really excited for our next meeting. So our combined engagement and housing and development committee will be going to see the North Omaha Visitor Center, talking a little bit about that development and the kind of just idea behind that. And then we will be going on a bus tour of North Omaha. So open to everyone. Really, we're trying to find ways to just get, again, like y'all said about the site visit in person, people connecting, going out into the field and seeing what's going on and having those discussions. Again, really excited. We went on the bus tour last year, but really excited that now there's a home base for that group and a lot of just interesting things that are happening. So it'll be next Tuesday at 3 p.m. We will meet there. Tell a friend to tell a friend. There's, I assume, gonna be enough space for everybody. And then we'll kind of meet together afterwards to debrief and talk about what we learned. So
Father Saul, if you would like to come.
Yeah, please let him know.
Awesome. Let's go to infrastructure.
Yes, Chris is not here, so I'm just gonna give you a short update. Most recently, we just began having conversations on how we can provide educational opportunities for public officials that get on the responsibility to work on infrastructure projects. The infrastructure committee has provided a lot of input as to the type of education that might be needed at this point. We just began conversations on our last meeting 2 days ago, and we really want to make sure that we work with public officials and learn what they need help with. Most of the times when new public officials are given the opportunity to lead projects, when they get elected, sometimes they do not have all the background. So we just want to make sure that MAPA becomes a resource to them, and we really find a way to fill in the gap and provide the knowledge that they might be needing at this point. This is not an effort to highlight what people don't know, but instead we really want to make sure that public officials really have a way to understand a little bit more about public infrastructure in this case.
Great, thanks. So I'll make sure we are right at that time where the recommendations from the mayor's task forces are coming out. The infrastructure committee was one of those. And so I don't know if you've been made privy to what the recommendations were from that committee, but make sure you plug into those if you haven't already.
We will begin on building a strategy, and for sure we'll ask input. We'll have to get input from all the jurisdictions and make sure that we talk to all the task forces and ask them how we can do this in a better way that can be helpful.
For sure.
Yes.
And I would say that for housing and well, actually, because these recommendations were created as a collective, and so I think there's a good way to cross-reference some of that. Okay, thank you. Zach, you're up next.
Yeah.
No questions for Sal? Seeing none?
Okay, so Natural Resource Committee, we're promoting just attendance here at this Prairie Seminar, which occurred late last month, a couple weeks ago in the Los Hills. I wasn't able to attend, so can't speak in depth to what actually occurred there. But again, I think just in the general theme of today and these committees, the connections that we need to form within these kind of groups, the seminar group, to link our projects, link what we're trying to get done together. And so building off of that, actually, one thing that the natural resource focused on in the past was a community forest plan, assessing our tree canopy in the region, what data sources we had, how do we collect data, how do we assess what we have, and what ultimately is the canopy goal. Some of those items were included in the climate action plan. And so we're starting to see now on the back end of that, a little bit of engagement with that climate action plan on, okay, this is an actionable item. How do we pick it back up and start running with it again? So I'm excited to see that there's a little bit of momentum now again
towards getting that community forest plan group maybe back together, which will coincide well with our next meeting, which will occur at Fontenelle Forest. Thanks to Michelle there for hosting us. We're gonna have our quarterly meeting there, and then also we have an opportunity to walk the forest boardwalk, see some of their improvements they've done recently. So, any questions on any of that?
Questions? Thank
I
you.
would say overall, like, the budget for these kinds of site visits is new, and like getting out a little bit more with these committees, is what we would like to do a little bit more moving forward, so. We have, added budget for that, of last year, I guess, but, just wanted to keep that consistent and moving forward with that. So if there's anything you'd like to show off or bring people to, we will be doing a lot more of that. And look, Mike is less virtual at the moment. So, this is you.
Okay, all right, well, just highlighting MAPA's budget, we come to the RPAC and talk to you guys about our work program priorities in February and April, and just kind of wrapping up here at the end of May, kind of where we ended up with our budget. Most of this is just to inform the next two slides that I'm gonna let Carlos and Grant add any additional detail to that they want. But overall, our budget has grown quite a bit this year, largely on the side of some state and federal pass-through grants, largely on the transportation side of things. One of those is just a byproduct of the success of the mini grant program. The Heartland 2050 mini grant program has grown substantially. And what that means for us is, communities that want us to administer those projects, that means we have more contracts to administer, we have more consultants to procure, and so we're really working internally just to build our own capacity to do that. And so you can see here almost $9.4 million anticipated, most of that on the transportation side of things. But some additional projects that I'll get into here, or I'll let Grant get into on the community development side as well. And our work program submitted to our state and federal partners on June 1, or if you want to go to the next slide. So just things that you hear about here at RPAC, from our strategic plan to the member survey, to the work programs and budget. For us, what we're trying to do, and Laura just kind of touched on it a little bit with her description of these little mini site visits and really trying to build our engagement tools, is trying to be responsive to where we see energy in the community, where we see opportunities to bring people together, problem solve, and then kind of alongside that, building our own capacity to just deliver on those things. And so our board's vision for MAPA is in that kind of dark shaded area on the left. And we really see that kind of trickling all the way down to these statements of work that we'll get into here on the next slide. So community development grant, I will let you talk about anything on this slide that you want to. You've already kind of presented back in February and April, but anything that you want to draw kind of specific attention to.
Oh, I would say grant writing administration, that's just kind of the bread and butter of our departments, being a shared resource for our member communities. So we do a lot of grant writing for communities that have project needs, but they just don't have the staff or the real capacity to explore those opportunities and to submit those applications. I'll actually talk about the strategic plan coming up here in a few minutes. Disaster preparedness and response. This is just kind of a byproduct of recent disaster events, really going back since 2019, since 2019 floods. We've done some pre-disaster mitigation work in the past. We've used post-disaster recovery work. I think in terms of floodplain buyout programs, we administered a massive project in Pacific Junction, Iowa. So I think we're interested in working with disaster recovery partners, whether foundations or county emergency management agencies, to explore ways where we can be more of a shared resource. Community assistance and training opportunities. This kind of goes back to capacity building for the local governments that we serve. In ComDev, community development, we work primarily in communities that are smaller, more rural in nature. So just being a resource where we can provide training on things like project management, grant writing, leadership development, anything where there's an appetite in those communities, and we can be a resource to share some knowledge and insight. Military installation readiness. So a few years ago, we worked to create what was called a joint land use study. And this was a study that looked at land uses and potential encroachment issues around the Air Force Base. And the next level of this, or the next iteration, is looking at it from more of a lens of, I would say, disaster preparedness and traffic infrastructure. So there is some things that we need to sort out in terms of what this kind of effort will look like. It's probably not something that we're really going to dive into head first for calendar year 2026, but it's something that's on our radar. And then the last thing, brownfields assessment grant implementation. We submitted a grant application to EPA earlier this year to do an assessment project for part of the Omaha Inland Port Authority's footprint. So if awarded, this would be a pretty big lift for us, and it would be a pretty significant investment for our staff. But hopefully, if funded, it can allow us to help identify brownfield sites, known or assumed contaminated areas in a part of the city where there are some major redevelopment opportunities.
Great. And Carlos.
I'll just mention a couple of quick ones. Obviously, you've heard us talk about trips, the transformative regional investment, more to come. We're still early in those stages. The regional freight plan will be continuing through. And one of the ones I'm particularly fond of is reconnecting communities and looking at Highway 75. That's going to be kicking off later this year. Very exciting projects. A lot of work going on throughout the region. I'll just keep it short like that.
Yeah. So happy to answer any questions if there are any. Okay. Great.
Okay. Some of you might not be aware, MAPA has a foundation, the MAPA Foundation, and it was an organization established in 2000, originally to accept charitable donations for a motorist assist program that MAPA used to run, and I believe now is managed by NDOT. And in more recent years, it's existed to be more or less a revolving loan fund for community development block grant program income. So what does that mean? If we worked with a community that had an eligible project, they could apply for CDBG to fund an economic development initiative. They would use the block grant to make a loan to a private business. And then over time, that business would make repayments, the program income, if you will, to a foundation, a nonprofit development organization like the MAPA Foundation. And in Nebraska, the Nebraska Department of Economic Development has created a structure or a framework to allow that transaction and use of the CDBG program income dollars. So as far as an organization goes, it's not really active. There's not really a mission statement, and the foundation is staffed by MAPA staff. It's governed by our regular board of directors. And we just haven't really had a lot of strategic vision for how to activate this organization and the financial resources that we currently maintain. So earlier this year, we hired a consultant to help us do just that, help us do some capacity building and strategic planning. Here is the timeline. It's a quick turnaround. So we've already checked off a few of the milestones. One set of dates I want to call out is July 22nd and 23rd. The consultants who are from Kansas City will be in town for a few days, and they'll facilitate some focus group discussions and then a workshop with our board on July 23rd. So between now and through the rest of the summer, they'll be facilitating a virtual engagement survey. They'll be facilitating focus groups. some one-on-one interviews, and we haven't really finalized the stakeholder distribution list yet, but I suspect RPAC will be a part of that. So just be on the lookout for anything having to do with MAPA Foundation strategic planning. And again, it's a quick turnaround, so hopefully by September or October at the latest, they'll have a final report to share with our board that will include their recommendations and suggestions for how we can better utilize this organization and its financial resources. And I just think it's an exciting opportunity because it's an opportunity for MAPA to be more of a partner in a way that is kind of outside our traditional quasi-governmental structure. And we might be able to provide some assistance and add value without the constraints of that kind of quasi-governmental structure. So any questions now or after, feel free to reach out to me.
What is RLF assessment?
Oh, revolving loan fund.
Okay.
Yeah, so it goes back to that CDBG program income I was talking about.
Cool. Yeah, so other updates, I guess, we've got a couple on here for ongoing project work that MAPA is involved in. First one I've got for you is the Douglas County Trails Plan. So MAPA is working with the Douglas County Environmental Services to update the current trail plan, which was last updated in 2004. The goal of this project is kind of to look at creating a more cohesive system of trails and multimodal corridors with a particular focus on serving the increasing development that's going on in the Western Douglas County. So we've been working with WSP on this project. We started around January. It's going to run through until the end of December. So we've gotten really far into our data analysis and pieces. We're starting into our public engagement now. We had one stakeholder meeting a couple weeks ago with the Western Douglas County Collaborative Group. We have a couple other stakeholder meetings come out. You'll see on the left side there, we have one that we're going to want to do with developers to kind of see how we can incorporate trails as things are being developed. So kind of hitting things on the front end as best as possible. We want to talk to schools and youth groups. So we're working to reach out to superintendents for school districts that go over into Western Douglas County. We're looking at athletics. If anyone has a key person you think should get involved in any of these stakeholder groups, please reach out to me and I can kind of get them looped in on it. And then Trailblazers is kind of our third one. So that's kind of looking at the active users of the trail system. So getting some of our like Walk Nebraskas and stuff and the folks that are out there every day. We also have some pop-up events coming up over the summer. We did do one event a couple weekend. It might have just been last weekend. I don't know. Time goes by and it's all relative and I don't know what's happening. So might have just been last weekend. We went to a block party out in Valley that their library was hosting. That was pretty good. We got about 40 folks and we were able to reach out there to talk about the plan and get some of their input on what they want their trail system to look like in the future. Areas where they think they have safety concerns or particular destinations they wish they could get to on a trail or via active mobility, things like that. We have a bunch of other events coming up on that side. You'll see we'll be back in Valley at the Twin Rivers Riot YMCA on Wednesday the 17th. We're trying to set up a pop-up at Flanagan Lake. In the next couple of weeks, there's a big racing event that they have on the 21st. So we're currently actually looking into that, see if we can set up a table, because if you've got a lot of runners, chances are they probably use the trail system. It'd be a good group for us to connect with. So we're trying to set that up for the 21st. We'll also have a pop-up at Lake Cunningham on the 27th, and then one in Florence Mill at Florence Mill Farmers Market on the 28th. And then we're working with Waterloo Days, and that'll be one that we have at the Village of Waterloo on sometime in August. So big into public engagement this summer. Once that wraps up, we're going to be putting that draft plan together in the fall, and then hopefully have something to showcase to y'all by the end of the year. We also have a parallel effort. One of the sub-consultants with WSP, Alta Design, is looking at future network mapping and trail design recommendations and stuff. So they're kind of doing that simultaneously with our public engagement efforts over the summer. So if anybody has any comments, questions, concerns, you can look at Kent. Or Ken in the corner over there, Ken might have some info.
And salt.
Or you can look at me, and then so we'll get you plugged in where we can, as best we can. The website is now live with a public survey that's open, so I encourage everybody to take a look at that if you get a chance as well. That's kind of what we've got for the Douglas County Trail Plan. I don't know, Ken, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes, one thing, all questions should go to Lindsay. She's doing a great job coordinating with WSP. Yeah, I don't need to be in the middle of it.
Perfect.
Thank you, Lindsay.
All questions you can send my way.
And I will say this is funded by Heartland 2050 mini grant also, and the Western Douglas County Planning Collaborative is also another Heartland 2050 group that we pulled together just to convene. So it's the county, Bennington, Valley, and Waterloo meeting quarterly just to discuss common issues, particularly around growth outside of their jurisdictions in the county and how they are kind of managing that, working together in terms of services and annexation, that kind of stuff. And Father Ken.
So this one's also mine. So this is another Heartland 2050 mini grant. Some of you may remember we came to talk to you guys in December about the issue that we're having in the region regarding electric motorcycles that are being marketed as e-bikes that are getting on trails, and you've got kids without helmets going 40+ miles an hour on the trail system. So we've been looking at that. We were awarded that funding under the Heartland 2050 mini grant program. We're currently in the middle of procurement so that we can work with a group who will kind of do this policy analysis of existing best practices, what we currently have in ordinance in the region, to kind of put together some templates and recommendations that can be regionally applicable to kind of get at the core of this issue. So it's a very challenging issue, right? Because we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater and just ban bikes in general. So there's some nuance here as to what types of vehicles are currently available, how they're being marketed, how they're being used, education to riders, and kind of, we want to make sure that these electric motorcycles, which is what they are, right? We can't just ban them, right? Because they are a valid mode of transportation for a lot of folks as well. So we have to make sure that we're finding alternative places for them to be if it's not on the trails, and regulating our trails accordingly. So we're going through a pretty rushed procurement process, which is kind of new for us at MAPA. We're going to hit this as hard as we can, as fast as we can, because we know it is a big pressing issue in the region. Some of you may have seen, it was like, what was it? It was KETV or something released an article last week about this as well, which kind of goes to show that there is still some inroads to be made with
Knowledge and education
in the region in general about this issue. So we're hoping to start work in July, and there's going to be a lot of outreach that's involved with this. We're scoping for like 40+ one-on-one meetings with jurisdiction leaders. So it's going to be a very big push, where we want to make sure that we're getting as much regional involvement as possible, so that what we put together is comprehensive, makes sense, enforceable, and that everyone's all on board with the same plan. So hoping to start that in July. It's going to be a 9-month contract, which will run through March. We have an early goal of getting anything that might be state relevant done by September, so that if there is a separate parallel push for the legislature, that is done in time to enable that. But the full plan for the MAPA region itself, we're looking at March for that. So if anybody has any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, again, you can reach out to me and we'll get you put in. Grace,
I do. Yeah, first off, very excited about this planning policy that's going to move forward. I guess knowing that you're going to work with many different jurisdictions and even across the river in Iowa,
yes.
Are you guys going to have like an advisory committee put together helping lead this? And like, what's the plan to kind of develop this policy?
Right. So right now we're working with our Transportation Advisory Program committees. So this is one of MAPA's pre-existing committees that has historically handled TAP funds, so funds for trail work and stuff in the region. So we have a lot of players in that group already. We hadn't really discussed putting a separate advisory committee together for this purpose, but I think that's something that could definitely be relevant, something that we might want to look into for sure.
I just think you might, knowing that municipalities may need to actually like adopt this and take it to council and pass resolution, to be helpful to have like some in-house experts who
Yep.
may go back to speak, and I'm not volunteering myself.
So, and that.
Great step up. Love it.
And that is something that we're hoping to get at with TAP. So our TAP committee does have a lot of representation from a lot of different jurisdictions around the region already. They're gonna get updates of the project throughout. They're also gonna have their own kind of stakeholder workshop. And when we put that together, that might be the time when we want to bring in folks that aren't necessarily members of TAP, but are still kind of in this collaborative grouping that we've got. So if you want to come to that stakeholder meeting, I can put you down.
Yeah, I just, from Council Bluffs, I would think obviously, bringing out like police chief, public works director, Mayor Shudak, I think all that would be helpful because ultimately, those three would be the ones really kind of tasked with implementing this on our side of the road.
Absolutely. And so that's kind of what we'd be looking at for those, like, we're calling them one-on-ones, but it's really like jurisdictionally specific meetings where we make sure that we're going to each jurisdiction. So Council Bluffs would be one of those and meeting with the relevant, like, the main players that are going to be. So if the mayor wants to come, we would absolutely welcome the mayor, but also like city staff, city administrators, public works folks, law enforcement, that kind of stuff. So
I'm looking forward to it. Long overdue.
I'd just like to highlight, between this and some of our safe streets work, there's been a lot of engagement through our transportation planning work with law enforcement and first responders, and kind of new. But this policy, as Lindsay's talked about, it's been an issue that we've been monitoring. There is just a huge amount of focus on it at the local level. We get calls from, police chiefs, get calls from administrators, planners, public works, but just trying to figure out what to do. And so our hope is, to have principles that we can kind of agree to, and then, the implementation at the local level might be different, but just that we're not like having different rules of the road and rules of the trails from community to community, that we kind of have level set and try to figure out what we can and should do to best accommodate these things. But really kudos to Lindsay and Carlos and Jim and everybody else kind of leading this kind of front on this work, because it's a lot of engagement on this very, very early.
Touch on this one. As a region, this was technically the last year of SS4A, unless there's continuing resolution at the federal level. MAPA looked into applying and did apply for about 1.4 million for a demonstration project for the entire region. We're focusing on this thing called Whole Blood. If you want more information, come talk to me afterwards, or Jim. That is the MAPA side. We've also helped and worked with the city of Omaha on their application for 700,000 to look at Cuming Street and some of the signal work there. And then Potawatomi County looking at Old Lincoln Highway from county borders to city council bluffs borders, a roadway safety project. So lots of applications. All in all, around the region, I think this round we looked at maybe $22 million in additional funding for SS4A. As plans and people get more and more involved with this, we're trying to increase that amount that we're applying for under this. Hopefully, this is one of the ones that keeps going into the future with whatever federal legislation. Signs point to, yes, this is going to continue, but much remains to be seen. So we'll see. Hopefully we get this and we'll get on the ground running, moving ahead with doing post-crash care whole blood systems here.
And then this builds off our comprehensive safety action plan planning grant that we completed last year. And then we've got upcoming, so next week on Wednesday, we will do a whole deep dive kind of into transportation safety implementation from our staff in the Safe Streets for All programs. We've also got one at the Southwest Iowa RPA is what those groups are called. So we will talk to them about, and City of Omaha about implementation of Vision Zero and our Safe Streets policies. I don't know if either of you guys want to add to that. But Papillion Landing, great venue, should be, it's always fun. A nice crowd that we're getting for that if anyone would like to join us. We are also hiring, we have one position listed right now, for our deputy director. That would be a new position that's not currently filled, working directly with Mike. So you can find that online at that listing. And then, sorry that it's so late, it's like 11:47, but community updates time. So I know we like to keep you till noon, but if anybody wants to share what's going on in their community, what's up?
Okay, cool. City of Papillion just got through planning commission a new zoning district that's focused on missing middle housing. Took a lot of work to get it there, and then hopefully July we'll get it passed through council. But it's really focused on kind of redevelopment and smaller development areas, letting a lot of the townhouses, duplexes, missing middle things that Papillion is frankly really missing by right. And we're really excited about it.
Wow. Will this function as its own district then, or will it be an overlay?
So it'll be it'll be an R5 district, a brand new district. Really worked in, incorporated a lot of maximums instead of minimums, which we've done before. So a lot of smaller lot sizes, a lot more opportunity for things that just frankly aren't allowed right now in Papillion, and we're excited.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go next. I mean, Council Bluffs, we're still in full swing of our comprehensive plan and downtown master plan. Just got through data collection mode. We're about to kind of really kick off the robust public engagement. Which will start tonight with me out at Summerfest. So if you're looking for something to do tonight, come out to Summerfest. It's one of the city's premier community events. It'll be down at the riverfront, Tom Hennepin Park. The weather gods listen to our rain chants throughout the week. And so the drone show will go on. But yeah, I'll be out there handing out stickers, just talking to the community about what this plan means and how they can be part of shaping the future vision of Council Bluffs. So come on out and visit with us if you have nothing else to do tonight.
OPPD announced new solar purchase power agreements this last week. So Burke County we've got a little portion of their Burke County North Service territory. Burke County Solar is a new 250 megawatt solar array. It's going to be coming online here, and construction's just getting underway, so it's a few years away. But we're excited to have another generating source on our fleet.
Dan, this I did talk a little trash. Solid Waste Working Group, next meeting, July 8th. We are really kind of putting that meeting as focus on kind of the economics of recycling, economics of diverting material that we typically throw away. So part of it is segue from what Zach told about some of the climate action plan stuff, diverting organics away from the landfill and using them in composting, improving soils, which then also gets to the improving or reducing the amount of stormwater runoff, et cetera, et cetera. So that's happening there. We have a couple of national speakers that are going to be part of that. It's via Zoom at 2 p.m. on that. You know how to get a hold of me if you want to be invited to that. But that'll be a fairly dynamic presentation there. There's also a plan kind of on the same theme, economic summit around kind of recycling and how we can do better market development to help get all of the pieces connected from, you know, you can all put stuff in your carts by your curbside, but what happens after that? And we have to have demand for people wanting to buy stuff that has recycled content in it. So that's also part of the July working group meeting. But economic summit on the 24th of September at Henry Dorley Zoo. There will be a number of kind of national folks coming in on that to deal with all sorts of aspects of economic development. And so more to come on that. And then finally, under the sink household hazardous waste facility at 120th and I, we have a 3-party interlocal right now with Douglas County, City of Omaha, and Sarpy County. We're looking to expand the reach of that to Washington County and Cass County potentially. Also bringing in potentially the Papio Missouri River Natural Resource District into that. part of the incentive there is that we have a new Safe Battery Collection and Recycling Act that was passed by the legislature in 2025. It's going to mandate certain collection convenience standards. And so the household hazardous waste facilities around the state are going to play a key part in that, because damaged and defective batteries need to go to places like that, as opposed to dropping them off at Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that. So there is kind of a method to the madness there, but stay tuned on that. That's something that we hope to have in place by the first part of August. And I think there's a possibility of maybe expanding the footprint of that even more. So how many, just curious, how many people have used that facility? Okay.
Under the same.
Well, under the same, yeah, 129. That is a free drop-off service for any of the kind of household hazardous waste products that you generate at your residence. Free of charge, except for paint. There's a nominal charge for latex paint. But other than that, it is a free service. It is paid for primarily by landfill tip fees, some grant, but also some general fund money through especially the city of Omaha. So there you go. Done with trash.
Okay, just a couple of things from HUD. My favorite question, I guess, that I got 6 of them in the last 24 hours, was BABA and Build America, Buy America if you receive federal funds. I think there's some misnomers about, HUD's not doing any waivers to that, because it is expensive. We acknowledge that, prices have gone up. It just so happens that the department that I work in for HUD, Office of Field Policy and Management, is taking over the technical assistance and outreach for that. And so if you have any questions, or your city or jurisdiction has any questions, just call my office. Right now, our initiatives are coming off the excitement of Secretary Turner being here, and I know I'm not him or anything close, but doing the same thing. We're doing affordable housing roundtables. That is as expansive or as small as I want it. I don't think that we have enough voices at the table, and so I'm definitely going to be reaching out, being over Nebraska and Iowa, and there only being one of me, asking for prayers, but want to get out to everyone from here to Scottsbluff, and from Council Bluffs to the eastern city and in Iowa. I don't know what that is right now. And also talking about opportunity zones. I know this is kind of a quiet period. Those recommendations hopefully have gone to our governor. But there's also questions about the existing opportunity zones and whether or not you can have the opportunity zone funds for those. And the answer is yes. And how long does it go? And the answer is next December of 27. And so there's been a lot of misunderstandings about that. And so it just so happens we're over that too. And so a lot of big things are happening at HUD. We are in the streets. I'm never at my office. So I'm trying to change that, but I want to be available to the community. So all topics on the table, all resources available. So that's all I have.
That's great, thank you. And how do we get a hold of you, Kitty?
My office, and it's transferred to this phone, so you'll always be able to reach me, 402-492-3134.
Let the record reflect. Call Kitty if you have any concerns or questions about what HUD is or isn't doing. Thank you for that. Can I go next?
Yeah.
If you haven't heard the dirty rumor that the Housing Innovation Alliance might be doing something like a learning site visit to Omaha in late September. And so the Housing Innovation Alliance is a national network focused on advancing innovation in housing, construction, and development through collaborating between cities, developers, and builders. So we'll host maybe a contingent of folk to come see what's happening in Omaha, and I imagine that looks like convening partners to welcome people. So maybe you'll hear more about that. The mayor's interested in it, so we'll be planning for that, and maybe you'll hear more about it. We'll get together one more time before that, so maybe I'll bring some information on August 7th when this group reconvenes, and when we're talking about Husker, because it'll be time for football talk and around that time. So get ready for that next time we convene. Anything else for the good of the group? announcements. Chris?
I just want to say the conference yesterday was it was good, it was amazing. I had a great time presenting and also attending the various sessions, and it's just very inspiring and, and very uplifting to see how much positive things are going on in this region. I just, sometimes it's very hard to kind of like toot your own horn on a local level, but it felt really good now letting the world know and the Metro know like where Council Bluffs is doing housing. Like, we're not just sitting back waiting for things to happen. We're out there trying to make something happen for ourselves. And just to hear the comments and the feedback, this is just let you know you're doing the right work at the right time. So it was a great conference. I was very appreciative to be part of it.
Agreed. I would highly recommend attending in the future. I ran into Mayor Shubeck. She said that she was really happy with the breakout session. So good work. Yeah, for sure. Art to you.
It almost sounds like the Housing Innovation Alliance should also include Council Bluffs stakeholders too.
You know what? I just came up with something. What is the house? Plus, I'll be damned. Thank you, Mike. That makes
Making your job easy.
good. Thank you. If there's nothing, would entertain a motion to adjourn. We don't have quorum, so we're just gonna adjourn. And thanks to Megan, out some inspiring music to play you out as you start your weekend. Okay. And that's
Reagan in elementary school and get that album, because mom and dad would buy it. And the entire
Listen to the